series of Dark facing off against Serral. In that particular match, Serral just seemed to be a little bit faster, a little bit cleaner, a little bit better overall. But Dark did not play bad. He did win a game. In that particular game, the second one of the series, it was Serral accidentally mispositioning one of his queens, and Dark punished him immediately.
Right.
Lambo is going to have to play an incredibly clean series if he decides to take the same approach that Serral did, because, I mean, Dark is not messing around.
No, he's not. A couple of interesting notes about, we were just discussing a lot of things outside of the game. It's only just starting, and no cheeses so far, guys. But, we talk about these player performances, their history, and so often they really don't account for their own history. Like, Clem thought he had nothing but loss against Haas, for instance, and I had to be like, well, you've actually won all your games. So, Dark, as you were saying, when he feels like he is superior to you, he absolutely tries to show it, and he had that history of thinking that he was basically better than most of the non-Koreans. He's been humbled a little bit over the last 4 years, but it'd be very not surprising to hear that Dark still thinks that he is the favored player. He's got that confidence, and there's a reason he's got that confidence. But I don't think he's actually looking up his history with this man. He's just like, oh, that guy's okay, I guess, and I'm going to cheese him out of this game.
Yeah, most of the games were in like 2021 anyways. That's ages ago, an entirely different time of StarCraft 2, despite the fact that Dark did win the World Championships right around that time as well, and apparently Lambo was still beating him. Anyways, now I'm with you for sure. I don't think he's really thinking back of their previous series at all. Dark always strikes me as a very confident player who will do whatever he feels is currently best, even though it sometimes does look a little bit funny, some of his decisions. He makes a lot more links than a lot of other players would. But yeah, for now, at the very least, this game here is very normal. Both players opening up with a standard triple hedge.
Yes, very standard, actually. No one trying to fit in something like a two-base. It's a two-base opener, rather. But I definitely expect some shenanigans around that three-base setup once the hatchery is done. Who grabs an evolution chamber, who skips it, who goes for a faster lair, who goes for an all-in. I mean, ZVZ has proven to be tricky. We don't get to talk about it as much as we used to, but we know we talk about a lot about PvP trickery in mind games. Well, ZVZ absolutely has that going on. And on top of that, it happens less frequently. So you really are coming in almost with a clean slate, certainly between these two players, not having played all that recently, just most recently a map tournament. So the beginning game is really going to help set the tone for each other. Like, oh, okay, he's doing this today, or he's doing that today. But right now, it is the most macro normal ZVZ so far.
Yeah, we see, I think a lair just fired up for one of the two players, though it was only very briefly, there we go, on the screen. Lambo firing up the lair. He did decide to go for the baneling nest over here, but that lair is quite a bit quicker than what we normally see in this matchup. We'll have to see exactly what his plan is. There's the Roach Warren coming up, but notice the lack of an Evo chamber. Normally, we go from a baneling nest into an Evo chamber, a Roach Warren, and then eventually a lair.
Yeah.
Roach Warren's coming up as well for Dark, though, and he goes for another gas.
Yeah, usually you'd be like, well, this is the normal thing this other guy's doing. But of course, Dark's also setting up for something a little bit aggressive, perhaps. He is adding on a couple more drones, but Ling, a baneling pressure going on right now. This might actually work to both of their advantages, as they might both be trying to do something a little bit tricky. Who's going to come out on top on the micro, but who's going to come out on top as far as it goes about thinking the next step through in ZVZ?
The Queen ended up going down right there for Lambo, which does hinder him a little bit. Worker-wise, he's fine, but Dark is actually just still adding on a whole lot more links that will probably be needed for the defense here, because I do believe Lambo is going to be able to push this back. In the meantime, Dark has already transitioned back towards drones as well. Did he cancel the lair, by the way?
No, did it finish?
It already finished? No, I think he must have canceled it. I was going to say, because that probably should be finishing up right around right now. Lambo assuming that this was going to be a bit more aggressive than it actually was. So I'm not exactly sure what his plan was going into this match, but these engagements are all very clutch.
Yeah, we are watching a lot of Ling baneling micro, but usually the real story is in that production tab, so who's droning more, who's actually preparing for an all-in more than the other player. So that's why we're focusing a lot more on that. But you're absolutely right, Lambo canceled that lair. Unfortunately, his new one does get scouted repeatedly as Lings of Dark get in there. Luckily, will not get that queen. But it's very possible Lambo saw that Dark also had a Roach Warren.
Yeah.
And either said, okay, my plan's not going to work, or he's going to attack me first, which is actually very, very, very scary. And that they both have read into each other's forward Roach Warrens and said, well, that's a little off, so I need to respond to that. And so we kind of get this weird, like, well, actually, it's a normal DBZ.
No, you already brought up the mind games, and that's exactly what's going on in this match as well. Both players trying to outsmart one another. And in the end, we end up with a relatively even game. Few worker advantage there for a bit for Lambo. Now Dark has managed to even it up and pull ahead just a bit. I do like the lair timing for Lambo here a little bit better, but the +1 missile is earlier for Dark.
And 4 spine crawlers. Wait a minute, what did Lambo see in that natural? I know the observer pointed it out, but I actually didn't see what it was. Is
that was the roach worm.
It is
earlier.
just the roach worm.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting, yeah. Thinking that it's going to be perhaps that hatchery-based all-in. I mean, very tentatively trying to move on to this layer, but then also thinking, oh my god, maybe he's going to attack me. When really Dark is not setting up for that big of an attack. He's already got a lot of drones, and he just killed 7 of Lambos. That Queen finally does go down as well, and these Lings have actually had the chance to get a couple more drones. They will be cleaned up. Nonetheless, Lambo, he's overreacted. Now he's trying to recover a lot of drones on the production tab, and it is so awkward to do that army losing drones, drone. It's not going to turn out very well as Lambo is behind in every single parameter.
Yeah, no, exactly. The mind game's going heavily in favor of Dark here, not really going for the strategy that Lambo was assuming he was going for. And honestly, right now, I think Dark can just go for an attack right around the time that his Roach speed upgrade finishes. Lambo is now even investing into a Spire as well. Always a good option, but actually we see one on both sides of the map. That is very interesting. I feel like Dark, he must have checked the amount of workers that the opponent had. He's like, okay, Spire?
True.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
I feel like you could just go for a big Roach shove and probably win the game, but he's not taking any chances here.
Yeah, the amount of gas, I don't know. Like, this is actually so interesting. I totally admit that I feel like their mind games are going too fast for us. Like, even if we understood them, we'd be like, oh, and then this was happening, and then that was happening, and then this was happening, and then just trust me, guys, it's going my way. The point is, we keep on having to basically just calm down a second and say who has actually got those numbers on the lead, who has the better scouting, and right now, Dark does have the superior army, but as we head over into both of them getting a Spire, it is Dark who scouts his opponent's Spire, and that information is power.
Muta versus Muta wars are very strange, because normally with Mutas, you either make a round of them, you heavily commit into them, or you transition away, well, to whatever you're looking for, right? Normally they're made to obtain map control and put some pressure on the opponent. When both players, however, are making Mutas, there's an opportunity to, for example, add on Corruptors. There's an opportunity to go for example, the Flyer armor upgrade too, which really helps out in straight Muta battles, but it tends to get very awkward, especially since both players have so many roaches on the ground already.
I feel like this is going to go well for Dark here.
Yeah, he did actually finish his... I thought he canceled his Fire right there for a second. Here comes a little Baneling roll by. He's also going Hydra then, though.
Yeah, so Lambo's going to try and control the map with Mutas, right, well, then fitting in a pretty fast Lurker switch, I think. And then... Or he scouted the Spire, which you might have missed, but I think that's the plan. And then Dark, I think, is just going to go for Mutas, and then more a cheaper option for maxing out, which, of course, is Mass Ling Roach. And that's why I think I like his setup a little bit better. It's going to attack harder and, of course, actually be available, where Lambo is going to be waiting a while for any Lurkers, and the minimal number of Hydras doesn't really add that much DPS to your army.
This is going to be a very strange engagement we have coming up here. These Mutas will be spotted right now. Dark also flew his own towards the other side of the map, so even though they're both aware of roughly what's going on in this game, now we're going to commit with a Roach shove too. Man, there's going to be fights happening all over the map. Here comes Dark, though, pushing with his Roaches towards his opponent's third base. That Spine Crawler from earlier is actually going to come in very handy.
Yeah, I guess I canceled some of the other ones because there's only one that we're looking at right now. I don't know why I said Lurker so confidently, because actually, like, it's just... Especially with having to respond to what you've seen, you're trying to figure out the Mutas, you're trying to figure out the Roaches. The Mutas of Lambo are going to be outmatched. That's just simple as that. The math is there for Dark. But then Lambo has successfully defended that Roach swell that I was terrified about, but then Dark did invest so much in the Mutas. His Roach swell wasn't actually that large. And Dark goes into Ling, Baneling, Muta, and Lambo goes into Roach Hydra and eventually Lurker. So I was kind of right, but just not that quickly because he couldn't. And again, we take a breather and settle on a kind of normal ZVZ where one person went Mutas and the other person went Roach.
I feel like Lambo put down that Hydra then after he scouted that his opponent was also going Mutas. And I think he still made a round of Mutas to try and maybe deal some economical damage. But what's funny to me is that he already figured out, okay, I'm not going to be able to win the Muta war, so I'm transitioning away, but I'm going to still make a big round of Mutas and not cancel my Spire, despite the fact that I know you're already... It's a bit of a funny decision. Either way, though, both players end up maxed out here. Dark has got full map control. The problem is, fighting Roach Hydra with straight Muta. Roach is not very easy, and that's why the Banelings are here.
Oh, he's got to make sure those Roaches are on the front lines. You can see Lambo actually correcting his composition. Here come the old roly-polies. A Spinecrawler once again going to be able to help out the pre-split. The drones are pulled away, and Lambo is looking to hold here as Dark sends everything his way. The Banelings looking after those Hydras. He takes away enough of those Hydras, and the Mutas will reign supreme. And that's exactly what has happened here. Lambo down 70 supply and out of this game.
That was a wild game of Zerg versus Zerg. I love how, at the absolute highest level of StarCraft 2, what we're watching right now, Zerg versus Zerg is a very strategic matchup. But for like 99.9% of the StarCraft players out there, Zerg versus Zerg is all about not running all of your Zerglings into one Baneling. Right? And these guys are playing mind games, and they're calling each other's bluffs, and they're trying their very best to outsmart the opponent while microing and while playing the best of their abilities. Just insane.
Yeah, it'd be hard to track that one. I feel like we're in the meme image that, what's his face, just like being like, here's all the
calculations.
All the reasons, all the things that are happening right now. I would love to see either one of these players try to explain every single step of this game. Perhaps we'll get that whenever we're finished with the series. But this was a
Dark
roller
is just going to
coaster.
say, I wanted to make Mutas. I just wanted to do this. I just wanted to do that. He's not going to give you a straight answer, I don't think. Maybe Lambo, though.
I mean, it's one of those things where Dark might not be able to give a straight answer. He might not want to explain the thought process, or he might just legitimately be more of that kind of into it player, right? He's just like, no, I just thought like Mutas would be good. Like, I just thought this would be good. And then Lambo's over there doing the calculations.
Lambo definitely has run the numbers, which is why I'm a little surprised about the fact that he already started up the Hydra transition, but then still committed to making a big round of Mutas, and that they all got caught in the main base. That was a very interesting choice that we don't normally see. Either way, it's a best-of-5 series right now. First player to win 3 maps is going to be the victor, and I'm curious to see what's going to happen next. I wouldn't be surprised if we're now going to see a little bit of cheese, though.
Yeah, I feel like Dark would absolutely do that, right? But then Lambo really has shown some flexibility in that. Doesn't matter if he's down a game on his last life, as you know, evidence of the last series that he played. He will also throw in those cheeses.
Yeah, he said his hands were shaking in that Zerg versus Terran that he played earlier today, but he really thought it was the right choice. I think he's not super comfortable playing those aggressive strategies, but you know what? When you're in a desperate scenario, you might just need it. Either way, game number 2 in this best-of-5, we find ourselves on the map Ancient Blood, or Ancient Sister, rather. It's probably right here. In the top right-hand corner, we have Dark.
And in the bottom left, we have the blue Zerg. For Shopify Rebellion, it is Lambo.
Okay. Hatchery first, once again for both players, it seems. Nothing really out of the ordinary. There are early game cheeses that you can go for. There are also quite a few mid-game aggressions that you can suddenly execute. Yesterday, for example, we saw Cyril playing a 2-base opener versus Dark, which was really funky, and it certainly confused Dark quite a bit in that particular series. We could, for example, see some Nidus play. We could see very quick +1 melee upgrades. There's a lot of varieties when it comes to cheese in this matchup.
There's a lot of builds. There are actually so many, and it's kind of hard to list them all, but we actually got a glimpse of how many there could have been in that last game. It's like, just look at one game.
They played them all.
Exactly, it could have been so many of them. Well, we're talking about a lot. The Nidus play, the no Evolution Chamber play, the no Layer play, the hatchery-based all-in, the Ling, Baneling, Muta, the Muted into Roach. We could maybe have a Lurker Viper game down the line, of course, if they actually get to the macro game, but there's going to be so many mind games happening, and the execution that they are both forcing each other to deliver on. I mean, that was a tight game and more than just the mental warfare. It actually might just be purely explosive, right? Like, Lambo might be a European Zerg who kind of has that stereotype of being more of the macro guy, but he's going to be forced to really change it up against Dark.
So far, everything's normal. Lambo starting up a round of Zerglings. The same is seen on the other side of the map. Both players probably will be adding on the third, although the gas timings here are indeed a little bit different. Not a huge difference, though, overall, I guess. We see an ever so slightly faster upgrade right there for Lambo. But most of the time, I mean, this is to be expected.
I do recall back in Wings of Liberty where that 2 seconds was the most interesting thing in the game. Because the game itself would only last 4 minutes. It's pretty sick times. That is third hatcheries once again. I mean, I do absolutely believe in a best of 5 we will have a 12 pool. You know, like that's absolutely not absurd. But I do feel like it is more likely to have a lot of those post 3 base attacks and conundrums and weird stuff like we saw in the last game.
I feel like ever since that game at Katowice, I think it was Serral versus Ragnarok.
Yes.
Where it was a 12 pool and Serral just defended it perfectly. I feel like I've not seen any 12 pools at this level of play.
There's always that chance.
Yeah, there's always that chance for sure. But Serral defended it so cleanly at the time that...
I mean, that is the chance. Like, there's always that chance that you face the guy who just, like, plays absolutely perfectly against it. So it's,
exactly. I feel like ever since then, I haven't really seen a lot of 12 pools, but it certainly is possible, especially when your opponent has already admitted to maybe having some shaky hands.
Yeah. Although I would say that Lambo, that game was just so much packed into one game. I don't know if there is a lot of execution problems. He did occasionally lose track of Dark's lings, right? And maybe I missed out on some Baneling miss micro because we were just trying to track the production tab. But yeah, otherwise he seems he's in pretty good shape. It was just such a difficult game to call.
Dark going for a second gas while simultaneously making massive
Yeah.
Lambo going for a really quick Roach Warren, considering the timing right there of his Baneling nest. What is the second gas going to be used for? He's already sitting at 250 gas. There's no lair. What is he doing?
Now that is a good question. Why is he at 270 gas with 2 gases and no gas stuff?
He has got nothing that he's spending his gas on right now, other than if he plans on making 20 Banelings here.
Yeah, well, it's a limiting factor on his minerals, not his gas, but all right. Like, you will eventually be making a lot of Banelings.
He's actually just making mass Baneling,
That's actually what he's going to do, not something that you expect in this this level of ZVZ, actually. It all down to Ling, Baneling, Micro. Perhaps Dark saw a weakness in that last game, is going to try to push it.
Well, Lambo is already prepared with a Roach Warren as well as a Baneling Nest. If he can get some of those units out, life is going to be pretty good. I love the Queens here at the front as well. We even have the drones evacuating on out of there. At the very least, 3 of them go down. That could have been a whole lot more.
Yeah.
I think in the end right there, that engagement works out brilliantly well for Lambo so far, but the third hatchery is going to go down.
Yeah, that's actually really too bad because that was surprisingly good. Despite having his Queens kind of out of position and probably being surprised at how many units there were, he really was handling it like he had everything lined up. Except the defense to the third base. Did not have enough Banelings to defend against that. Dark almost running face first. Too much into a Baneling. Lambo is actually supply blocked. He's got 3 Overlords about to pop, however, so not the... that's not the biggest problem. The biggest problem is that, of course, that he lost his third, and it's looking to potentially be canceled again, too. Dark is finally letting up on the aggression.
I think this is okay right now, actually, for Lambo. He certainly should not lose the third base once again. For quite a while there, he was economically ahead. He did fire up the lair immediately while the engagement was going on after his third base got sniped, which is really good for him. Maybe he got a little carried away making this amount of Banelings, however. Dark still dancing around. I think Lambo does have a really good timing attack coming up as soon as the lair finishes here, but if it's up to Dark, he's just not going to let go. Oh my god, that was some massive connections.
Well, Dark, I feel like, has a good control over the game. Yeah, Lambo's lair is going to be faster. Faster Roach speed can absolutely help out, but it's not going to be anything particularly tricky. He's going to try and play it in the straight and narrow, despite losing that third hatch. And if you are able to recover it immediately, no further cancels, no further drone damage, sometimes it can work out surprisingly well. You don't dip down that far in economy, but you just, of course, you never want to lose that third base. He cancels Roach speed, grabs a Spire instead.
Did he saturate that second gas in the main base? Because there was one gas in the main that was not yet saturated. Okay, he did actually saturate that one. Absolutely critical when you're once again planning on going Mutas. And if Dark runs one Zergling over there, the timing of those gases at the third is going to be such a dead giveaway that this is going to be a Muta transition. But for now, he's in the dark. Unintentional block, sorry.
Actually, Lambo doing a very good job. It's kind of hard to deny those, I guess, peripheral gases, the outside gases from being scouted, but Lambo doing a good job so far. Perhaps Dark isn't pushing the issue as much as he should, because he's adding on a Spire as well. Ling in the main base was all sneaky sneak, comes back in and might be able to see the Spire. No! He doesn't continue on. Perhaps the Queen would have taken it on anyways, but now that Spire of Dark is hidden while Lambo still is, and Lambo's is faster.
This is once again a very strange game, though. The fact that Dark is certainly aware of the chances that there is going to be Muta play here, and he knows his opponent's lair must be faster than his. He still decides to add a Spire into the mix too. Look at the Lings in the main base. He's prepared as well for a Nidus Worm if something like that would be coming up. There's the Muta started though. One problem you can run into right here as Lambo is if you only plan on making one round, well, he goes for the +1 flyer upgrade right now too. He's going Roach upgrades together with Muta upgrades. That's a little bit special as well. But anyways, I think he is going to double down, and that's going to work out really nicely for him. As long as he gets enough gas income to match the amount of Mutas that Dark can produce and then some more, I think he should be in an excellent spot.
Oh, now he's been scouted. Will he change his mind somewhere?
He's actually adding on a lot of Roaches again. I think he wants to go for a big attack.
Yeah.
Maybe he hasn't quite figured out yet that his opponent would go Mutas here on the back of this, which is honestly a bit of a strange choice here from Dark. But because it's a bit of a strange choice, maybe it's going to work out.
I was going to say he could go Roach Corruptor.
Oh, there it is. Oh.
Yeah, which is really going to work out quite well for Dark. I mean, it's Lambo still has an opportunity to maybe overwhelm on the ground. The supply is looking quite nice, but Army supply isn't that far ahead. Defense advantage will kick in unless these Mutas can really contribute a lot of damage. And of course they will not. Queens are here. Corruptors are about to pop.
Okay, that one Muta apparently just barely manages to survive. Roach Corruptor is a strange unit composition, because yeah, the Corruptors are good at countering Mutas, but they're not very good at anything else.
Yeah.
Right? So like countering the Mutas, yeah, that's taken care of right now. Lambo may have already figured this out though, as he's transitioned towards just mass Roach Ravager once again.
Right, yeah, and I think that is better for him, but the Corruptors, this is a style that has appeared every now and again, and in fact, it's been called very powerful in the past, but then it really is so game dependent. How often is the opportunity given to go into this? So the Corruptors, you certainly don't want to overmake them. They are basically to defend against the Mutas, but they are extraordinarily good at that. And then they do go ahead and just basically peon buildings, right? Which can contribute, but it is about the Roach numbers right here, right now. Lambo ahead by 30. Army supply looking to break this 4th base, and I think he's got a really good chance for it.
Yeah, he was just testing the waters over here. He's got 2 upgrades in the making right now. He wasn't really planning on taking a fight just yet, unless he gets a good opportunity. Dark's reinforcements are showing up right now, but the supply count is heavily in favor of Lambo. He's pushing forward. Look at those Corruptors just staring at the ground.
Yeah, not able to contribute too much, but Dark realizes perhaps that he has the air advantage, so he's going to add on his own Mutas, and it's like a TVT at this point. The hatchery does go down. Lambo is going to retreat. The game will continue on. He did not cancel his upgrades or anything like that, like you said. He had stuff behind that. If it's in a good engagement, then it's a good engagement. So we will have 2-1 for the Roaches. We'll see if he actually tries to go into... Oh, yeah, nope, Hydra's Ascent is already on the way. There you go. I feel like going into your own Corruptor Muta would have been a very, very weird game, but the series is like that.
He could certainly add in on a couple. I wouldn't mind it since he does have the upgrade lead. He's just trying to push for the win right now, though. Maybe that base at the bottom is in a little bit of trouble here. Maybe the Corruptors are just trying to spray their caustic sprays on whatever they can, and the hatchery does actually fall because of it. But the main question is, can Dark clean up all of those Roaches in blue? Because I think there might just be too many.
Yeah, that +2 really helping out this battle. Now, the drones are pulled, so it did contribute to it, right? We have Dark actually holding on, but 23 drones went down. He still has trouble with upgrades as well, as Lambo will have that Carapace upgrade lead, but the supplies do even out. It's just that Dark is on 3 bases, 40 drones. Lambo, well, 3 bases too, but 60 drones, right? And he is getting a response to the Mutas that apparently he needs because Dark went back into him. And they will add, of course, DPS to the actual crown battle.
Yeah, so now Hydras are being mixed in right here for Lambo because his opponent is going into Mutas, which is not the situation we started off with. Normally, it's not the player who finishes their Spire first who's to transition away first. This is a very strange circumstance once again. Either way, I think it's got to, at the very least, buy a bit of time right here for Dark, right? And that's what he needs. I mean, economically, he's not in a very strong spot. The problem is, Lambo can't really attack until his Hydra upgrades are done. And that's minutes away. I mean, he could go for an attack, but it's very risky.
I mean, one of 2 things could have happened for Dark, right? He either catches Lambo really trying to end the game on pure Roach, so reinvesting into Mutas would have been fine, or he catches him going into Hydras, which is, a good response and all, but perhaps Lambo will then be hesitant to move out. Now, that's a maybe, and unfortunately for Dark, Lambo is moving out with a decent number of Hydras, even before their upgrades, feeling that he has the opportunity to once again engage. Perhaps, though, second guessing. I mean,
I don't blame him. Like, without the ranged upgrade, without the movement speed upgrade, those units don't
You know what?
I was being mean to the Corruptors earlier. I want to apologize. I said they were pointless after the Mutas were gone, but they've actually put in so much work.
Can't forget that vomit ability, man. They actually did some pretty good work because there were 4 bases. I kind of forgot.
4 kills in one of those Corruptors. I think one of them is a hatchery.
Yes, that's that is pretty amazing. And the supplies have evened out, which is also pretty amazing. Dark only on that +2 attack. Halfway down on his Carapace, but defender's advantage, the amount of Ravagers might be a little more important, whether or not the Hydras are properly positioned, all that good stuff. That is a lot of Ravagers,
Yeah.
Dark is going to be able to almost indefinitely hold a choke with that many Corrosive Biles.
Dark has not actually added on any drones. So after he lost all those workers, he's just been making non-stop army. He fired up another upgrade. I guess that's the most he could afford here. He is just trying to make one big army, and he hopes that Lambo decides to overcommit here. Lambo at this point has got a superior economy. He's got better upgrades. He's arguably got the better unit composition too, assuming he dodges all of those Corrosive Biles. But he doesn't know exactly how big the army of Dark is, right? You make the assumption at this point that Dark has decided to redrone.
Yeah, that's true, but Dark absolutely a master of this style of play. However, this concave, this surround coming in for Lambo is excellent on top of the vulnerable Ravagers he is. And the Ravagers are trying their best to get some Corrosive Biles to actually land. A pocket of them absolutely do, and Lambo has overcommitted, underestimating the power of the Corrosive Bile. Oh no, in seconds turning into a disaster for Lambo.
That was not supposed to happen in this particular game.
No.
Dark basically decided to just make non-stop army for the last 5 minutes or so, crossing his fingers for this exact attack. And that looked like an incredible engagement right there for Lambo, coming in from as many angles as possible. I think he covered every single attack path. However, the Corrosive Biles, they just connected.
Honestly, the Ravagers, usually when they're vulnerable like that, there's like 7 of them, so it's very easy to see them all go down. You're like, yeah, I did a good thing, yeah, all right, awesome. But when there's like 20, all right, 7 might have gone down, but there are still so many consistently throwing out the Biles, adding in that damage, adding in a little bit of the crowd control factor sometimes too. I mean, that was absolutely the perfect thing for Dark to do, and this is something that he is very good at doing in all of the matchups, playing in the more uncomfortable low econ situation, and doing a bit of gambling on whether or not his opponent knows he is, right? Because if Lambo, I think, was more convinced that this was a very, very last-ditch army, and he didn't have such a surround, right, exactly, he wouldn't have pushed. He would have been like, oh, okay, let's like calm things down and try to play out this macro game.
Actually insane. Lambo's best move here was to simply sit back, go maybe up to like, well, a bit of a bank, and then wait for the opponent to come to him. This is Dark in a nutshell, though. I mean, you brought it up already. He's incredibly good in those crappy games. And I would say Dark is the very best when it comes to playing in these very strange, unorthodox situations, right? I mean, a lot of the early games, they're like an Excel spreadsheet. You can work it out perfectly. You can find the optimal strategy. But it turns out when the game gets underway, you find yourself in situations that you can't really predict as easily. And Dark did a phenomenal job playing that from a very strange spot.
Yeah.
I mean, I always like looking at his face. He's like, yep, that was planned. I knew that this was coming. This
Yeah,
entire
absolutely.
game, I foresaw it yesterday.
Yeah. I do want to emphasize that I think if Lambo did not see such a perfect opportunity for a theoretically very good engagement anyways, I don't think he would have pulled that trigger. But perhaps there's other factors at play. Perhaps he just, of course, did not have the full information that we did. Didn't know how the game was really setting up. But now we have ourselves potentially the final game. In the bottom right of Neo Humanity up 2-0. He is DKZ's Dark.
His opponent in the top left, representing the rebellion. He needs your energy. He is Lambo.
Absolutely, this knockout brackets, while it's had its share of just really hype moments and that momentum building that we've been talking about, it's also had its share of, well, basically people petering out, right? Skills actually tweeted that's what he feels like affected him the most, I guess, with Classic. Is like, well, I had to try so hard today, and I decided I didn't have the energy left over. So Lambo might be in a similar position. We'll see if he can pull it back. Certainly has to make sure that mentally he's okay, because he did not look happy about that last game.
No, he's definitely an emotional player. I don't think he's going to feel all too good about himself right now. And Dark, at least emotionally, he always looks very strong to me. Yeah. There's a couple of players out there that seem to power up when they're behind, and I feel like Dark is one of them. Maybe that's going to bait him into a false sense of security here because he does find himself ahead. But honestly, Dark always very focused. I don't think that will really happen. And Lambo definitely needs to make sure that he does not already feel defeated in his mind.
I do feel like old Dark, like 3 years ago.
Yeah, maybe a little bit, yeah.
Would have just 12 pulled actually, He's like, I'm up 2-0, this guy's a foreigner, like, I don't care. It's gonna work. But, he definitely has moved away from that. First of all, of course, his opinion of himself and the fact that he was a non-Korean killer. He actually just was undefeated, except for like one match for years. And it was a laser who broke that streak. a good friend of Lambo's, and I figured that the last couple of years it's actually been a lot of losses for Dark. I haven't checked how many yet, but yep, definitely different tune.
Now, the non-Koreans, of course, have definitely caught up. If you were to ask Dark, he definitely thinks the Koreans are better, I'm pretty sure, but...
Well, the Korea versus Europe ZVZ is quite a fun conversation to follow. But yes, we have Lambo going for a bit of a different opener here, taking that rich Vespian Geyser.
Yeah, going for the forward third base. So Lambo has a build order prepared for this particular map. It could just be more of the same, because that rich Vespian Geyser, the one with the purple, that you see right here in the middle of the screen as well, it grants you 8 gas a trip rather than a conventional 4. Now, of course, it also mines out very quickly because it still has 2250 gas in total, but usually the games don't go long enough for that to really be relevant. So you can effectively, you can harvest that with less drones, and therefore you can make a larger army eventually. The problem with that base, though, is that it's rather exposed in the middle of the map. There are, however, some rocks that you can knock down as well in Neo-Humanity.
That is true. That is true. You can also try and posture on the high ground of that ramp if you actually do have the units to do so. So there's still some defender's advantage that can kick in, but then the obvious problem there is that it's on the front line, so then there's these other attack paths that go behind it, as opposed to kind of having shared defenses. But that's if Dark wants to take advantage of that. There are some people who think that the better course of action against these like fast golds or fast rich Vespian Geysers is actually just to stay the course. You know, not let it get into their head and make them change up whatever they had already planned.
Roach Warren's coming down here for both players. Dark already has got that banelingness of his done. He sees the situation that he's in right now. There's that gas taken, though. I think Lambo is probably planning to go for some sort of big push. Now, Dark, he's got a sneaky Overlord just getting out of position there, but he must have spotted the timing of that gas in the center.
Yeah, it looks like Dark is going to do exactly what I said. Stay the course, just play out his own.
Yeah, he did see it.
His own game. Yeah, he did see it. And now he's still going to keep that Overlord alive to track that particular attack path. More drones in the way for Dark. However, Lambo with some roaches on the way. Dark has to be careful not to over-drone. He's about to be up 10 drones. If he stops there, certainly has a chance to hold on, but, you know, stop there. Oh, and he supply blocked. Those 2 Overlords coming in late. 66.
Yeah, oh, there's a couple of banelings here ready to run by. I guess they still obtain quite a bit of scouting information as Dark was ready to kill drones that don't yet exist at that base. And that's because Lambo is making army. Lambo is pushing through the center of the map right now. That baneling is not going to get anything more than just 1 Zergling, I believe. He is ready to go for 1 big all-in here. Spine crawlers have started up, and Dark, he needs to defend this.
Yes, he does. Lambo needs to win this to keep his hopes alive in the knockout bracket. This is his choice for game number 3 to all in on Dark. Dark was a little late, so starting the defense. Spinecrawler is not done. Roach is a little late to popping out. Queens on the defense as an emergency, but they are going down without contributing those transfuses. Oh, okay, 1 goes down, but the Banelings now crashing in, adding a lot of AoE. Is it going to be enough for Lambo? The supplies say it isn't so.
Yeah, he's trying his very best here. I think initially that engagement looked incredible right there for Lambo, but Dark with some good transfusions that he saved up. He made spine crawlers. Sure, 1 of them went down, but the banelings ran into that one as well. Now Lambo decides to drone on the back of this once more, but the problem here is that Dark has already had a slightly bigger economy for quite a bit. He's now going to be the one who gets to be aggressive if he wants to.
Yeah, I mean, an all-in StarCraft 2 doesn't mean the same as poker, of course, but it is dedicated, and it does impact Lambo when it does not work. Dark able to get enough roaches out in the nick of time, and they ended up not actually even really needing the spine crawler, right? So Dark does have the position for the economy. It was better, kind of evened up, and now getting slightly better. He has the upgrade. He does not have the lair timing, and we've had so many interesting Spire plays. I do wonder how this is going to go in this game, as Dark actually kind of initiates a counterattack.
6 Overlords fired up right here for Lambo, as he is now the one hitting a bit of a supply block. Now the banelings come in from the left once again. Okay, that was actually no workers going down, I believe. Maybe just a single one. Decided to get a little bit too greedy, maybe. Dark not too happy with that particular engagement. He was dancing on the right side as well. Didn't really get the fight that he was hoping for, and now he's actually made a lair against someone who's already finished the lair.
Yeah, and more drones on the way for Lambo, absolutely necessary. Great save on the drones, by the way. To really only 1 or less is excellent. Dark wanted that distraction, wanted the banelings to hit just a little bit closer, but it was overall a bit of a failed counterattack run by both, I suppose. And now we do have a favorable drone lead for Lambo, as he is still behind on that +1. That could still be the kill move for Dark. He just, swells up on roaches, hits with the upgrade. It was something that actually did not impact him, surprisingly enough, upgrade disadvantages. But yeah, for typical ZVZs, upgrade advantage, very important.
Okay, so Dark's looking around right now. Is there a Spire he thinks? No. A second Evo chamber? Okay, fair enough. That's something that puts you in a pretty comfortable spot. At the very least, he doesn't have to be all too concerned here just yet with any mutants or a Nidus worm or anything too crazy that he needs to address head-on right away. One of the problems, though, is that Lambo, of course, is going to have, well, upgrades a little bit later, but he's going to have 2 of them at a time. It is a big indicator that most of the time Lambo is going to be sitting back here for quite a while. Look at him firing up the +1 carapace together with the +1 missile. He already has the Overlord speed upgrade done too. Dark now making his own. I mean, both players just playing Roach Ravager. This is the most normal game so far.
Yeah.
Quote unquote normal.
Yeah, Dark doesn't believe it. He's building spore crawlers. He's like, this is positive.
Oh, interesting.
Oh, he might be right too, though, as Tunneling Claws does get started. And we're going to be able to detect them, but that's not why Dark needs
He thinks it's a fake second Evo in the main base. Yeah, it must be.
That is funny. I mean, that's 3 drones, 225 minerals. Did I do math on broadcast correctly?
Did you just... No. Never do math on broadcast.
I think I did
Never
it right.
do math while you're live zombie grub.
But I think I did it right.
225 is correct.
Yeah.
Did you calculate in the cost of the drones, though?
No. Oh, well. But Tunneling Claws is going to add that dynamic to this this game, which is that it's not maybe necessarily about the big battle, right? It's about whether or not the 4 roaches flip into the natural and kill 12 drones while Dark isn't looking.
Okay, so both players going mass Roach Ravager. Both players pretty much maxed out at this point. Both players not really ready for any sort of transition here whatsoever. Okay, there we have the very first tech structure that we haven't seen yet in this series. It's going to be an infestation pit. So, yeah, I think Lambo is planning on transitioning pretty soon here. Dark also ready to tech up towards the Hive.
This really has turned into the macro game. I was not sure we were going to get to Hive, Viper, Lurker, but I did throw it out there as an option. And then the question is who is better at that stage. Hard to say with the limited ZVZs that we've seen between the two, and just in general. But now we have the Tunneling Claws done. You can see how their harassment goes. Lots of them actually burrowed up here. If they do manage to slip on by totally unseen, that could be catastrophic damage and a lot of time wasted for Dark recovering from that. But we know there are spore crawlers. There is an overseer over the army as well. Now, Lambo knows where that is, to of course avoid it. But where are the pathways that are open?
That is a lot of roaches he's committing right now. And I'll actually wonder if that's not maybe too many, because as soon as those units pop up, I think Dark's actually going to go in for the counterattack. Anyways, we've got a Hive done, or actually finishing up right now here for Lambo. Both players have already fired up their Lurker dens as well. So the ultimate unit composition for this particular matchup, the unit comp that kills everything, is Hydra, Lurker, Viper. There's not really anything better than that. I think we'll see players transition. I mean, the game could still end at any moment, okay? This is certainly not necessarily going to be a late game Zerg versus Zerg. But if we get there, I think we're going to see those roaches that we're losing right now getting replaced with Hydralisks instead. And eventually Lurkers, eventually Vipers as well. It's an expensive unit composition. You especially need a lot of gas. So that's why these outer bases are actually critical.
Yeah. By the way, the jig is up about the Tunneling Claws. They ended up not doing a whole lot, and then Dark saw the graphical upgrade, and, well, has offended everything that it's attempted to run by so far, including almost like a random-looking Ling Baneling run by. That was miscontrolled at the last second. So Spines are on the way with those spore crawlers. The Roaches absolutely going to be traded out, and you could do that very effectively if they burrow up somewhere. Dark's going to go ahead and take care of that. As we get into the late game, as you said, moving on to Hydra, Viper, Lurker, totally fine. But then also, as moving to the late game, who has the more gas? And right now, Lambo has that very comfortable bank right there.
Yeah, one thing we saw Serral do in a similar situation against Dark yesterday is make a lot of static defense. So he ended up making tons of Spines and Spore Crawlers at this particular stage of the game. Maybe a couple of minutes from now is when we can see that as well. I mean, Lambo already sitting at nearly 4,000 minerals here. I mean, it's nice to keep them around, making sure that you can maybe remax really quickly if you absolutely need to. But I'm inclined to imagine that Dark probably, look, he's even worried right now about a Nidus network instead of the main base. I'm inclined to imagine that Dark probably feels a bit more comfortable at this particular state in the game, just because his late game has always been phenomenal.
That is absolutely true. We do talk about Dark's late game again in all of the matchups pretty commonly, but Lambo, I mean, again, kind of stereotypically, the European Zergs, right? They get there all the time, it's all about the late game.
True.
Not actually the case, I feel like, in the last year or so, but still, like, there's definitely a lot of practice there. It's going to be very execution-based. 7 Vipers on the way, I think, is absolutely what Lambo wants to get. I don't know if his Rich Vespian Geyser has been expended, because he suddenly lost out pretty hard on the gas income. Yep, oh, there you go.
Well, I mentioned at the start of this game that normally that one doesn't mine out, because I think the average game of Zerg versus Zerg on this map is like 6 minutes, but in this particular case, it's already run out, whereas Dark is still going to be able to mine that Vespian Geyser as he only just now begun. He's going for a Nidus network of his own. And Nidus worms, they're very scary. If you get lurkers inside of your main base and you don't have Vipers with energy, you can get absolutely destroyed. Now, you talked about tunneling claws. You were talking about Lambo's roaches. It's got to be Dark who's tunneling towards the other side of the map.
Did that show to Lambo before? I've actually been not tracking that, honestly.
He
so
must
I'm not
have
sure.
seen it. Yeah, he made one spine crawler here, but I don't think that's going to really do too much.
No, and no detection elsewhere, so I don't know if he was late to seeing it or just didn't think about it too hard, but it is actually Dark doing exactly what I was afraid Lambo was going to do, which is getting a lot of roaches all into every single base, going after the technology. Lurker Den goes down, Hydralisk Den goes down. It's a complete reset on the Lurker technology, and Dark hitting the left base as well.
Wow.
Technology, drones, as well as a hatchery going down there. And while a couple of Abducts try to at least trade this out, no doubt about it, Lambo has taken a lot of damage there.
It is not a good weekend to be a Lurker Den. I feel like I've seen like 7
Yeah,
of them
yeah.
down in this tournament so far. Absolutely insane. Now, Lambo did, luckily for him, fire up a Lurker Den very rapidly once again. So at least he can continue, but Dark just bought himself a lot of time here. So he's going into Mass Viper himself. Look at the Hydras and the Lurkers on the production tab as well. Dark is going to have at least a minute, where his opponent is just not going to have those upgrades that he will have on the Lurkers.
Yeah, I mean, that was a lot of roaches that Dark was able to give away. It caused a lot of chaos and it caused a lot of infrastructure problem, but Lambo, with a very comfortable bank, can kind of try and play this out calmly, right? He can say, like, I'm still okay, don't panic. Let's just stick to the foundations and hope that I can eventually get to Lurkers. Dark grabbed that Nidus Worm, and unfortunately, Lambo is not paying attention. The infrastructure that he has rebuilt in the main might be once again under threat. Nah, he responds quick enough. Dark does not have a secondary attack set up. That would have been nice, but that Nidus Worm had a lot of threat. Didn't actually do anything, at least now.
Yeah, exactly. At least for now, it didn't really do a whole lot other than make Lambo panic, right? And maybe that alone is already worth a little bit of gas that the Nidus Worm costs. Either way, Dark in firm control so far of the late game, but he needs to be careful. Lambo also now has a very formidable army himself. He's got enough income here too. His economy is still looking solid. He's got a lot of money here, but now we start trading whatever we can abduct.
Oh, all the spells coming down. Well, mostly Abduct and a Blinding Cloud as well.
Dark, though. He got all the Vipers, I believe, other than like maybe 3. Yeah.
Dark was abducting into Spores, and Spores kill Vipers so quickly, not because that's what they were designed to do. It was a buff for Mutameta a long time ago, but it greatly impacts
against biological, right? That's ages ago.
Exactly. It greatly impacts 2023's EVZ. Lambo might have remade that Lurker Den lickety split, but he could only make so many Lurkers off the Hydras he already had. Didn't actually remake the Hydralisk Den, so definitely fixing that before he starts really trading out. And once again, Lambo with an established bank. By the way, I can't help but mention this result. Maru Gumiho 2-2. That is pretty sick. Like, what?
That is actually crazy, yeah. Gumiho stepping it up. Maru's Terran versus Terran is insanely good. Anyways, Dark, once again, going for another Nidus Worm. This is mostly just pulling Lambo back, right? So look at the bank, though. Lambo has got so much money.
It does.
How many spine crawlers and spore crawlers has Dark made in this game? Because he must have quite a few.
Yeah, he's a decent amount. He is actually sniping a hatchery once again. Lambo does not destined to take that base over on the left side. Dark's once again going to lose a chunk of roaches for it, but Nidus Worms once again attempt to be placed down. I mean, if they live out of sight of Lambo, then they just, work a bit later on, right? Or, as you were saying, they force the units to go panicking, spreading around, looking for it. They find this one, but the point still stands. Dark adding on more drones, adding more Hydras. He was a little later to that +3 Carapace, but when you get to so many Vipers and Lurkers, some of those upgrades, not the most important thing. These Lurkers not going to hold this line. Well, to help the Spine Crawlers, they will.
So from here on out, any expansion that these guys decide to take, they're essentially going to be next-door neighbors with the opponent. These bases are very close together now. Maybe the one on the left side at like the 9 o'clock position is still reasonable for Lambo, but in general, these bases are getting awfully close to one another. Dark moving forward right once again with the Lurkers, trying his very best to just put him in a Nidus Worm and try to snipe those bases. Lambo training out his Roaches and Ravagers very efficiently. Now once again making the Hydras.
That was a really nice move right there, just eyeing up those lurkers, saying, you know what, there's not that many of them, killing them. And this time, Dark did not have some backup lurkers, which is what stopped them in the previous attempt. Now, this attempt to kill the Hatcher doesn't really work out, actually only getting 6 drones, so not the biggest of deals, but I just keep going back, you know? It's like, okay, on the vision that we have, on the screen that we're looking at right now, it looks like there's things happening in Dark's favor, but then you look at the mineral count, and it's like Lambo he's got some comfort. And, I mean, the resource loss trade, is it that different? Has he really been mining all that much? 3,000 difference, so it is more efficient for him, but mining more at some point.
Yeah, this is a very interesting situation right now that we find ourselves in, though.
Glad we brought up that graph because I said it and I was like, but he's not been ahead on drones.
Yeah, no, he doesn't really have that much money. But the problem is, these armies actually, like normally Zerg, you just remax in like half a second and it seems like it didn't take any time at all. But these armies actually take a time to produce. So if you take one bad engagement, you get your army abducted, you can just push for the victory right away. So even though the banks are significant here, and Lambo is a little bit ahead in that department, he wants to be trading out continuously.
I guess it is literally the 3,000 resources that he has saved in those trades that adds to his bank, but it's a lot about the gas anyways. And now we're getting into a little bit of a base trade, so it's about who can actually pay attention to multiple areas faster. So far, Dark encroaching on more important territory of Lambo. I'm actually not sure where Lambo's army is. Oh, it's responding all the Vipers! Parasitic Bomb coming down on all of Lambo's Vipers. He's forced to split like a Terran right now, and he does a pretty good job of it. But those Vipers also can't re-engage. They're still very, very weak, and Dark just continues pushing forward.
Yeah, Dark indeed trying to just force those units to back off here for the time being. He's getting another abduction in over there. These lurkers are tricky to break, though. I mean, you still need detection too. Blinding Clouds do disable basically all of the lurkers that are available here for Dark, whereas Lambo's ones are still dealing damage.
Really gotta give credit to Lambo for keeping us cool in this game. Again, just visually, you're watching this game, you're feeling the tempo, and it feels like Dark is just constantly hitting him, and you think he's taking damage, but then he's like, no, I'm fine, apparently. Really quite cool, and he's down 0-2 in a 20-minute game, in which he has had some very difficult decisions to make, yet he stays strong on the supply, remakes his Vipers. That does take away from his gas bank, but if he can secure a good fight for himself, or finally secure some extra bases, then he'll certainly catch up again.
Yeah, the Vipers are absolute key in these engagements. Without them, it's very hard to get much done. Lambo was forced to rebuild quite a few of them. Here come the lurkers once again, though. Detection is so necessary. Do we have enough right now for our player in red? Well, once again, he's pushing forward. There's another Parasitic Bomb. Blinding Clouds going down on both sides as well. Dark slowly started to gain some traction here, although it's really difficult to say who's winning the fight.
Yeah, the lurkers of Dark were blinding clouded successfully, but then once again, Dark got some sick Parasitic Bombs on Lambo's Vipers. I'm not sure how many of them popped, if any, actually, because again, it split pretty well. But we have Lambo instantly trying to remax on 25 Hydras, an impressive amount to see on that production tab. Dark also trying to do the same thing, but he is a little poor for it, actually. Now he's down 30 supply. He's still trying to trickle in some, and he is trying to buy some time, do some damage with some lurkers sprinkled around the map.
These games are so crazy, though. They're so incredibly difficult to play. They make me feel like I'm playing checkers, and they're in the meantime playing 3D chess on like multiple boards at the same time. Somehow, some way, still reading the situation correctly, as both players decided to add on a couple of drones once again just now, too. Probably trying to get some gases saturated here. The trades are going pretty good, though, I think, overall here for Dark, because he was behind economically earlier. At the very least, his bank wasn't that significant. He still has a bit more gas, well, at least before I started that sentence. He had a little bit more gas there available, too. The trades have been even over the course of this game, but I think over the last few minutes, Dark's been trading a little bit better, and he does appear a little more confident.
I mean, he's certainly making the moves.
Yeah.
Like, again, it feels like he's setting the pace, and he's getting all these Parasitic Bombs, which really do make me scared for Lambo's chances in the actual battle, but he manages to just barely get off some really sick Blinding Clouds. Now, that time the Parasitic Bomb 100% killed the Vipers, only 2 left over, very weakened as well. Another base trade has been initiated.
Dark's on the other side of the map. He's not actually ready to defend this at all, so if this game right now ends with a full-on base race, I have no idea what to predict anymore, because this is pretty crazy. Most of the Vipers of Lambo, though, have gone down. Those Parasitic Bombs have been absolutely incredible from Dark. He must have killed like a dozen Vipers of the opponent, whereas Dark has not lost nearly as many. Suddenly Hydras, though, are in the main base. Lurker Den number 2 is going to end up going down in this game as well. The Hive will not be too far behind either. And the supply counts here, while relatively even,
Yeah.
they're inching in favor here of Dark.
They are. He's getting some more serious damage done. Not only that, his composition should be superior, provided he controls it well. He's got triple the Viper counts and quite a few more lurkers, and once again, having that ability to spread out lurkers and also defend at his home. That is going to be it